хочешь, что я на линейка А или
Is it line A,
на линейке L буду, да?
or I will be on line L and I will switch to A? Okay.
This is Mission Control Houston. This view of the Soyuz MS-09, a very bright object, quite distant from the International Space Station. Since it undocked from the spacecraft 09 about 2.5 hours ago, we are just 4.5 minutes away from the initiation of this 4-minute, 36-second engine firing to begin the trip home for Sergei Prokopiev, Alexander Gerst, and Serena Aunen-Chancellor. Less than 3.5 minutes away from the deorbit burn. Once again, helicopters from the Russian Search and Recovery Forces are airborne from the Zhezkazgan airport for about a 30-minute flight to the landing zone. They will arrive and fly in a racetrack pattern until the Soyuz is on the ground under its large main parachute. To complete this mission, then they will land in sequential fashion to begin the process of getting to the vehicle, opening up the hatch, and extracting the crew for a few minutes in chairs that will be set up before they're brought into a nearby medical tent for initial medical exams and to get out of their Russian launch and entry suits and into more comfortable clothing. The weather down at the landing site, more suitable for penguins than humans, about 3 degrees Fahrenheit is the latest temperature that we've heard, with overcast, fog, and smoke in the area. So it is questionable as to how much visibility we will have to be able to see the Soyuz descending under its chute today.
СКД.
2 minutes prior to SKD ignition. Confirm combined GSO.
Inside 2 minutes now until the deorbit burn.
Vertical generation.
в норме.
Минуту до включения двигателя.
1 minute remaining prior to SKD ignition. And please monitor the command execution. And
Sergei Prokopiev, the Soyuz commander, will be monitoring chamber pressure and the progress of the burn, which again is expected to last 4 minutes and 36 seconds. Once again, we're looking at a view of the Soyuz MS-09 from a truss camera on the International Space Station. Now just over a minute until the burn is executed.
Время минута до СКД.
1 minute prior to SKD ignition. I confirm combined GSO and stabilization mode, and confirm power and free gyroscope flags. Covers are open.
Крышка СКД открыта.
SKD cover is open. Copy.
Секунд.
30 seconds remaining prior to SKD ignition.
Я нахожусь на формате маневр.
I switch
This is Mission Control Houston. just seconds away from the start of the deorbit burn.
Alex is using control display, 15 seconds remaining. 10 seconds. 7, 5, 3, 2, 1. SKD ignition time is at 7:10:52. We confirm.
The deorbit burn is underway. You saw that flash right behind the Soyuz vehicle. The burn is underway,
0.35
occurring right on time at 10:11 p.m. Central Time, as the International Space Station and the Soyuz flew 252 miles over the South Atlantic.
And delta V, or burn value, is inaudible. In 30 seconds, the gain is 15 meters, and KDU parameters are nominal. Copy.
Ускорение в норме. 21 метр набранный.
21 meters, delta V, gain delta V.
За минуту.
In 1 minute, we have gained 27 meters per second.
65.
And KDU parameters are nominal.
Набранный импульс 30.
Gain delta V, 35.
За минуту 20.
And duration is 1 minute and 20 seconds. In 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Ускорение 0,46.
Acceleration 0.46.
90 seconds into the burn, about 3 minutes to go. So far, so good.
0.5 minutes.
The Soyuz velocity is decelerating
Delta V, copy.
as planned. A braking maneuver using the main engine to slow the vehicle down by 128 meters per second to enable it to drop out of orbit for its descent back to the landing site and a touchdown on the frozen southern steppe of Kazakhstan, with landing scheduled just 50 minutes from now.
За 2 минуты набрали 55 метров.
We have gained 55 meters in 2 minutes. Copy.
KDU в норме.
KDU parameters are nominal.
Ускорение в норме. 60.
Acceleration is nominal, 65 meters
За 2, 25.
in 2.25 or 2.5 minutes.
70 метров.
Actually, 70 meters in 2.5 minutes for stage 1.
The deorbit burn going well, almost 3 minutes now in duration, about a minute and a half to go.
2 minutes and 55 seconds.
KDU в норме.
KDU parameters are nominal, 81 meters in 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Так, за 3 минуты.
Actually, 3 minutes.
Ускорение в норме.
Duration is nominal.
KDU в норме.
KDU parameters are nominal, 90 meters in 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Copy.
Ускорение в норме.
Acceleration is nominal. We have gained 98 meters in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. KDU parameters nominal.
Once again, the deorbit burn continues, everything continuing to go by the book.
5 meters in 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
Now 4 minutes into the burn, about 36 seconds to go.
111 метров.
111 meters in 4 minutes. Copy.
KDU в норме.
KDU parameters are nominal. And please monitor GECA main command or cutoff command, standing by for cutoff command.
4 minutes, 20 seconds since the burn began. We're standing by for the cutoff.
Acceleration parameters nominal, KDU parameters nominal, 122 meters in 4 minutes and 23 seconds. Copy.
Есть ГК.
I confirm SKD cut-off command and 7:15:30. This is the cut-off command time. Delta V is 128.2, and I confirm TD.
The burn now complete, and our visiting vehicle officer here in Mission Control reports a good burn. Sergei Prokopiev, Serena Onin Chancellor, and Alexander Gerst now beginning the final leg of their journey home. We're standing by for the depressurization of the habitation module, the upper section of the Soyuz vehicle.
Separation according to TVC display. Copy. Barrel pressure is dropping. 380 is the pressure reading. Copy. SA pressure is nominal. It is 775. I'm switching to SKDS. Barrel pressure is at 200.
So just to recap, the deorbit burn was executed on time a few minutes ago.
Pressure is nominal.
A 4-minute, 36-second retrograde braking maneuver. The Soyuz engines firing to slow the vehicle down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to begin the slide out of orbit into the Earth's atmosphere. Of the Soyuz vehicle, that's in the process of being depressurized as per the nominal plan for any Soyuz entry. It will be depressurized down to vacuum here momentarily. It, of course, will be discarded upon module.
Barrel pressure is 65. Inaudible. Copy.
All of the helicopters associated with the Russian Search and Recovery Forces, Rosaviatsa, the civil aviation branch of the Russian Air Patrol, all of those vehicles are now airborne from the Zhezkazgan airport. It's about a 30 to 35 minute helicopter ride down to the area of the landing zone, which is about 87 miles to the southeast of Zhezkazgan. Once they arrive in that vicinity, they will form a circular racetrack pattern, if you will, around the landing site, waiting for the Soyuz to arrive under its large main parachute. Once the Soyuz has touched down, those helicopters will then land in sequential fashion to begin the process of approaching the vehicle, safing the vehicle, and extracting the crew, who will be placed in nearby chairs to get a few minutes of fresh air and to get their land legs back a bit. Once the vehicle begins to enter into the Earth's atmosphere, which is coming up here in the next 20 minutes, the crew will begin to feel the first tug of gravity against their bodies since they departed the planet back on June 6th.
Altai, Moscow, how do you read me?
We're also approaching the point where the Soyuz will be somewhat more than 100 kilometers away from the International Space Station, and the geometry of the VHF antennas on both the Soyuz and the International Space Station are such that communications could be choppy and often non-existent during the dynamic phase of the vehicle entering the Earth's atmosphere.
10 millimeters is the bow pressure, and bow is ready for separation. SR pressure is at 778.
That last transmission indicates that the BAO, as it is called by its Cyrillic acronym, is the habitation module. It has now been depressurized down to vacuum and is ready for pyrotechnic module separation. That module separation is scheduled about 16 minutes from now when the vehicle, the Soyuz vehicle, is at an altitude of about 140 kilometers above the Earth. The Soyuz and the International Space Station flying currently over the South Atlantic in a southwest to northeasterly track approaching the west coast of Africa. Landing is scheduled 41 minutes from now. Taking social media questions once again on hashtag AskNASA. Eric Flack asks, why did the Expedition 57 crew members not get extended until the 59 crew arrives? That would be on February 28th U.S. time. Wouldn't the extra hands be useful? Of course they would. It was planned that this would be a 3-person crew for a little less than 3 months. The Expedition 57 crew is coming home this evening with 197 days in space. The Soyuz vehicle typically has a certified lifetime of between 200 and 215 days in space due to the effect of thermal expansion and contraction on the propulsion lines in the vehicle. So as a result, the duration of an expedition, unless there are extenuating circumstances, usually is restricted to about 200 days, slightly less perhaps, for any crew that flies in space. And this question, what happens to the other 2 sections during the entry, as we've mentioned before? Coming up here in about 14 minutes will be the pyrotechnic separation on computer command of the 3 sections of the Soyuz. The top section, the habitation module, and the lower section, the instrumentation and propulsion module, burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. They are no longer needed. The center section, of course, is the descent module. The crew is strapped in to that portion, and that is the portion that brings the crew home to a parachute-assisted landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan. Once again, at this point, the Soyuz vehicle is more than 120 kilometers away from the International Space Station, steadily descending toward the region of the top of the Earth's atmosphere. And this puts the Soyuz in an area of choppy, if not loss of communications until it approaches the landing site, where communications would be restored through the Antonov 26 fixed-wing aircraft that serves as a flying command and control center to relay both voice and data back to Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow.
Altai, Moscow, how do you read me? Moscow, this is Altai 1. How do you read me? Okay, we can hear you well. Altai 1. And you're coming in with interference, with noise. And just a reminder that after you close your visors, Alex will be providing detailed commentary. And please release push-to-talk button 6 minutes prior to separation. And you will be pressing push-to-talk button without using the scupper. And please put KSS rescue aids in armed position. Inaudible.
This is Mission Control Houston, a dramatic view of the Soyuz vehicle as it is descending over West Central Africa, over the Congo, moving from southwest to northeast. You saw flashes of lightning on the earth below. The Soyuz steadily making its way, barreling towards a touchdown 33 minutes from now on the frozen steppe of Kazakhstan, where the search and recovery forces are about to arrive in a dozen Russian Mi-8 helicopters to greet the 3 crew members. This is a view we have not seen before, taken by one of the cameras on the truss of the International Space Station. This is once again a view of the Soyuz MS-09. Its 3 crew members, the Expedition 57 crew, now 32 minutes away from landing in south-central Kazakhstan. Cameras on the International Space Station following its rapid descent as it flies over the Central African Republic in an inclination from southwest to northeast.
Я готов.
Готово.
Unintelligible.
Ну, давайте. Закроем германию. Закрываем.
We are closing the visors.
Алик, закрываем.
You can hear the crew on board Soyuz MS-09 saying that they're preparing to close visors as we are some 5.5 minutes away from the pyrotechnic separation of the 3 modules. The center section, the descent module, where the crew is strapped into their seats, Prokopiev in the center seat, flanked on his left by Alexander Gerst, on his right by Serena Anand-Chancellor. They are all set for the final stages of their mission, with landing scheduled 30 minutes from now, just to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan. With the Soyuz now having descended to a point where it's no longer visible from the truss cameras, we are some 4 minutes away from the pyrotechnic separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz vehicle.
Алтай, КСС режим готовности. Закрываем гермошлемы.
Altais,
Включаем автомат КСС.
get ready. Close the visors. Activate KSS in the automatic mode.
Once again, the module separation of the 3 sections occurs at an altitude of some 87 miles above the Earth, coming up in about 3 minutes or so. Everything continuing to go by the book. The communications, as expected, a bit choppy as the Soyuz moves further and further away from the antennas on the International Space Station for relay. Communications should improve somewhat when we see the Soyuz passing within range of the Antonov 26 fixed-wing aircraft that is currently flying over the landing site to the southeast of Zhezkazgan.
Программа расселения запустился. Управляемый спуск есть.
We confirm controlled descent.
Принято.
Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston. We're about a minute away from this event. That will be the computer commanded separation of the three sections of the Soyuz vehicle, leaving only the descent module to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere with its heat shield pointed in the direction of travel, repelling heat that will build up around the spacecraft to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit.
Герова есть? Есть включение ТИУ?
Altai Moscow. Do you see fuse activation?
With landing scheduled about 25 minutes from now, we are now hearing the beacon, a familiar sound from the Soyuz vehicle that sends out navigational information between the Soyuz and the search and recovery forces at the landing site. And we now have confirmation of module separation through data received at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow. You're looking at a view of the ISS flight control room there in the town of Korolyov outside of Moscow. So everything proceeding right on the timeline, right by the book, 24 minutes away from touchdown. And although we have not heard specifically from the crew, again, the data indicating that we have had module separation. The Soyuz and its 3 occupants, the soon-to-be completed Expedition 57 crew. They are 22 minutes away from touchdown and now are entering the Earth's atmosphere, feeling the first sensation of gravity since they launched 6.5 months ago. About a minute from now, they'll enter what is called the plasma regime, where temperatures around the Soyuz will build up to some 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat shield at the base of the descent module will ablate that heat, although the crew members often refer to it as flying quite fast inside a fireball. This plasma regime lasts about 5 minutes in duration. Less than 21 minutes until touchdown. And about 7 minutes away from the command to deploy the parachutes on the Soyuz vehicle. Once again, the weather down at the landing site is what you would expect for this late December time frame. Temperatures in single digits Fahrenheit, overcast skies. The winds are not particularly frisky, but there is reported to be fog and smoke in the area. We're about 18.5 minutes away from touchdown. The Russian Mi-8 helicopters are now in the vicinity of the landing zone, awaiting the arrival of the Soyuz MS-09 under its parachute. That chute deployment is scheduled less than 5 minutes from now. We're about a minute away from the point at which the spacecraft will emerge from this plasma regime, during which time the crew has experienced about 4 to 5 Gs against their bodies. Once they exit the plasma regime, we're about 2 minutes away at that point from the command to open up the parachutes. Landing is scheduled just about 16.5 minutes from now.
Altais, how are you feeling? What was the re-entry time? Altais. Copy. How can you copy? How do you read us? Copy. Unintelligible. 5 seconds. Yes, we confirm 5 seconds. What was the maximum G load? 3.9. Copy.
Communications has been restored with the crew as we stand by for chute deploy, reporting that their maximum G-forces were just under 4 Gs.
Unintelligible. The integral is 15. Unintelligible. Copy all, Alex. Thank you. The G load is 1.4. Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston, 14 minutes until the anticipated touchdown of the Soyuz in south-central Kazakhstan. We're standing by for confirmation of chute deploy. The crew reporting that they had a nominal entry through the plasma regime with a buildup of just under 4 Gs. This is Mission Control Houston. Everything proceeding per the plan as the Soyuz nears its landing site. Just about 12 minutes until touchdown. The parachutes should have been deployed by now. We're standing by for confirmation. This is Mission Control Houston, just over 10 minutes until touchdown. There is our first view from the landing site. Television from the landing site showing all-terrain vehicles in position. The temperature is in single digits Fahrenheit. As we await the arrival of the Soyuz vehicle, you can see that the skies are somewhat overcast on this December day. It is Thursday morning at the landing site, just before 11 a.m. Kazakhstan time. 10 minutes until touchdown. The Soyuz heat shield should have been jettisoned by now, exposing the altimeter at the base of the descent module that will sense the relative position of the Soyuz to the ground and ultimately issue a computer command to the Soyuz to fire its braking rockets just a few feet off the ground. And a view of one of the Russian search and recovery helicopters, part of a fleet of a dozen such Mi-8 helicopters that are being employed by the Rosaviatsa Russian search and recovery forces in support of the recovery of the crew once they touch down, landing scheduled about 9 minutes from now. Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center report that they have established voice communication with the Soyuz MS-09. The crew reports it is feeling well just 8 minutes before touchdown. This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, you're looking at a live view from the landing site about 87 miles southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan. The temperature in single digits. This is in the wake of about half a foot of snow that fell at the landing site over the past few days. Landing is scheduled about 7 minutes from now. The report coming in from the search and recovery forces that they have established voice communication with the crew on board MS-09 and that they are feeling well. We're just about 5.5 minutes away from touchdown. The crew in good shape, according to the last report received from the search and recovery forces at the landing site. This is a live view. One of the Russian search and recovery helicopters circling the landing zone, awaiting the arrival of the Soyuz vehicle. And the navigation beacon that is a familiar sound indicating the approaching position of the Soyuz vehicle as it nears touchdown. The Soyuz descending steadily under its parachute, approaching the landing site, touchdown about 3.5 minutes from now. Cameras associated with the search and recovery forces continuing to scan the landscape at the landing site in southern Kazakhstan. Touchdown expected about a minute and a half from now. This is Mission Control Houston. We're still awaiting confirmation of landing, but you can tell that some of the ground vehicles obviously are heading in a direction that would imply that the Soyuz has landed. We're standing by for confirmation. This is Mission Control Houston. The Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center have now confirmed that they have a visual on the vehicle. It has landed in a vertical position. It is upright. So the Soyuz MS-09 stuck the landing on the eve of the 50th anniversary of humankind's first voyage to the moon. A multinational crew returns to Earth after spending more than a half year in space. We're still trying to confirm the time of landing. We believe that it was an on-time landing at 11:03 p.m. Central Time, but we're standing by for a further confirmation of that. Again, the search and recovery forces have And now we're hearing that the landing time was just a touch ahead of schedule at 11:02 p.m. Central Time. So unofficially, the landing time 11:02 p.m. Central, 12:02 a.m. Eastern Time. We have visual confirmation from the search and recovery forces that the Soyuz landed in a vertical position. The ground vehicles are making their way toward the spacecraft to begin the process of safing the vehicle and extracting the crew, while the Russian Mi-8 helicopters begin the process of landing in sequential fashion to assist in the post-landing operations. So Expedition 57 now in the books, 197 days in space, 195 days on the station for Sergei Prokopyev, Serena Aunen Chancellor, and Alexander Gerst. A mission of 83.3 million miles at an end, with touchdown occurring unofficially at 11:02 p.m. Central Time, 12:02 a.m. Eastern Time. 11:02 a.m. in Kazakhstan. You're seeing again a live view from the landing site, where the conditions not ideal for viewing. Obviously, the landing. We never saw the Soyuz under the chutes, but visual confirmation from the search and recovery forces that the vehicle is down and landed in a vertical upright position. This is Mission Control Houston. It has been about 13 minutes since the landing of the Soyuz MS-09, about 87 miles to the southeast of the town of Jezkazgan in south-central Kazakhstan. The crew reporting it is feeling well. The Soyuz landed in an upright vertical position, and both ground vehicles and Russian Mi-8 helicopters are making their way toward the capsule to begin the process of safing it and extracting the crew to bring them into a nearby inflatable medical tent for post-landing medical exams and to get out of their Russian launch and entry suits.
База, вперед, сам. Это база. Как там еще стоять на борту? Как там еще стоять на борту? Ладно, я ухожу, наверное.
This is Mission Control Houston. The report from the Russian Mission Control Center is that the search and recovery forces are landing in sequential fashion in their Russian Mi-8 helicopters along with a series of all-terrain vehicles, and they are at the spacecraft that touched down approximately 18 minutes ago at 11:02 p.m. Central Time, 12:02 a.m. Eastern Time. They are in the process of securing the vehicle safing it, and will soon be in the process of extracting the crew from the vehicle. We do expect that once the television equipped vehicles as part of the search and recovery forces arrive at the spacecraft, that we will get video from the landing site. We'll be standing by for that. This is Mission Control Houston. Just to recap, the Soyuz MS-09 landed about 20 minutes or so ago, approximately 11:02 p.m. Central Time, 12:02 a.m. Eastern Time, landed in the vicinity of the landing zone to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan, landed in an upright position. The search and recovery forces are around the vehicle. We are waiting for the television cameras on one of those all-terrain vehicles to be repositioned and for us to receive video from the landing site of the crew being extracted from the spacecraft. Everything went by the book. The hatch closure, the undocking, the deorbit burn, and all of the sequential events through entry and touchdown of the Soyuz. Again, we're standing by for more video from the landing site to show the crew being extracted from their vehicle, their mission having ended after 197 days in space, 195 days aboard the International Space Station. Left on board the three crew members, Soyuz and Station Commander Oleg Kononenko, now the commander of Expedition 58, along with Canadian Space Agency astronaut David St. Jacques and NASA flight engineer Anne McLean, who will be a three-person crew for about the next 2.5 months. This is Mission Control Houston. It's been about 24 minutes or so since the landing of the Soyuz MS-09 spacecraft with the 3 crew members on board. At the landing site is NASA Public Affairs Officer Gary Jordan, who is right by the capsule. Gary, give us a situation report on what you're seeing. We do not have live TV at the moment.
Well, Rob, it is a very brisk winter out here. There's a bit of overcast here at the landing site, so we weren't able to see the capsule come down. But here I am right in front of it, capsule erected perfectly upright. A great landing for the crew of the Soyuz MS-09 vehicle. At this time, we have NASA personnel, Roscosmos personnel, Energia personnel, and some folks from ESA all gathered around the capsule. A metal structure has been erected on top of the Soyuz descent module. This is a series of ladders and slides that allow Russian specialists to climb on top of the vehicle and retrieve the 3 crew members inside, Serena Anand Chancellor, Alexander Gerst, and Sergei Prokopiev. Everything's looking good so far. Hopefully you should be getting some video soon. It is, there's quite a lot of snow here on the ground. It'll be a pretty cold arrival, but the 3 crew members will be able to breathe fresh air for the first time in 197 days. Even though there was a bit of cloud coverage, the search and recovery forces arrived on time. We're actually retrieving the crew members now. Looks like there's a couple smiling faces on top of the vehicle, showing that the crew looks to be in good health. Already pulling some equipment out first before we start seeing the crew members. But again, a little bit of overcast. Search and recovery forces arrived on time. Everything is looking good so far. None of the crew members have been actually pulled from the vehicle quite yet. We should be seeing that momentarily, unless you are seeing it as well with me, Rob. I don't know if you have video yet.
Gary, we don't have video at this point. Has the usual inflatable medical tent been set up nearby?
Yes, an orange inflatable medical tent, probably at this point around 150 yards away from the capsule. A flag has been erected right next to the capsule. And again, we have recovery personnel situated around the capsule itself. There's an orange medical tent, again, 150 yards away. It seems that all of the helicopters have landed, and all the personnel that are part of the search and recovery forces have arrived here. I'm not sure if you're seeing video yet, but we can see some of the gloves have been removed from the crew members and have been taken out of the capsule so far. A series of checks before they actually start pulling the 3 spacefarers out here soon.
Yeah, Gary, stay with us, of course, for your reports as the crew members are being extracted. We do not yet have a live television picture from the landing zone. We never saw the vehicle under the chutes, obviously, because of the overcast conditions today. But the bottom line is the crew and the Soyuz landed safely after a flawless entry. How many people would you estimate are involved in this extraction process?
Rob, I'd estimate about 30 to 40 personnel at the very minimum. There can possibly be a little bit more. I can see some personnel stationed a little bit closer to the helicopters rather than around the barricade that has been erected just around the capsule here to prevent some of the other personnel from getting too close. We have about 4 personnel now on top of the ladder structure. One Russian specialist inside the capsule now looks like maybe retrieving the first crew member here shortly. About, again, 30 to 40 personnel around. We have some media here that are taking some photos. No videography, I don't believe, at this time. On the ground here from NASA personnel is NASA personnel and International Space Station program manager, our operations manager, Kenny Todd. We also have NASA astronaut Kate Rubins. She will be one of the personnel that will be assisting Serena Anand Chancellor, especially from the medical perspective. We also have some NASA medical personnel and European Space Agency personnel. Still retrieving some of the crew members. Everything still looks to be okay so far. We should be seeing the first crew member outside the capsule here momentarily.
Gary, we're now getting a video of the extraction process, and we see what you've been talking about as the first crew member is pulled out of the Soyuz. This is probably the Soyuz commander, Sergei Prokopiev, if they follow the usual procedures of getting the first crew member out from the center seat of the Soyuz. And our understanding is that the temperatures are in the single digits Fahrenheit there, so not the most ideal day, sporting conditions for this time in December. Tell us what you're seeing, Gary.
It is indeed cold, a little light snowfall, but Sergei Prokopiev currently with a smile on his face, waving to the personnel here on the ground, being assisted by the Russian specialist down the slide. Seems to be in good health. He still has a smile on his face. Of course, it was a long journey coming down, and this is the first time he for the air from the Earth in 197 days. Being carried.
Okay, we may have lost Gary through his satellite phone, but you're seeing the video of Sergei Prokopiev being placed on one of the chairs just alongside of the Soyuz spacecraft. And we'll be standing by here since we're getting live video from the landing site for the other two crew members to be extracted. Again, you're watching live video from the landing site of the Soyuz MS-09. About 87 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, the Soyuz commander, Sergei Prokopiev, first out of the vehicle, being attended to in usual fashion by Russian nurses and his flight surgeon. With the Soyuz spacecraft safely on the ground, both a NASA Gulfstream jet and the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft are now being repositioned from the staging city in Karaganda, which is about 2 hours to the northeast of the landing site. Those aircraft are being repositioned to Zhezkazgan so that it will wind up being a short helicopter ride for the crew members once they complete their initial medical tests in the nearby medical tent that has been erected. And once they have an opportunity to doff their launch and entry suits and get into more comfortable clothing for the 35-minute helicopter ride back to Zhezkazgan. The search and recovery personnel belonging to RSC Energia now working to get the second of the crew members out. This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to receive video from the landing site as the extraction of the Expedition 57 crew continues. We've reestablished communications with NASA Public Affairs Officer Gary Jordan, who's in the field right by the capsule. Gary, tell us what's going on. We do have live video at the moment.
Hey, Rob, I'm not sure if you heard my last report before I dropped off. Sergei Prokopiev seated in the middle of 3 seats. The 3 crew members, once all extracted from the Soyuz MS-09 descent vehicle, will be seated in these 3 seats, positioned right here in front of the cameras and the views that you're seeing live today. Prokopiev underwent a series of medical checks while in the seated in his seat right there, next to the medical personnel surrounding him currently. Smile on his face. Looking pretty good so far. Russian specialist now back on top of the ladder structure, about to retrieve the second of the 3 crew members inside MS-09 today.
Gary, it's our understanding that the Gagarin cosmonaut training aircraft and the NASA Gulfstream jet that brought you from Houston to Kazakhstan, along with other NASA personnel, are being repositioned to Zhezkazgan, a short helo ride away. That obviously designed to reduce the amount of travel time in fairly inhospitable conditions today.
Indeed, Rob, we took the AN-26 aircraft out of Karaganda yesterday afternoon, landed in Zhezkazgan just fine. Helos and aircraft and search and recovery forces already stationed there, one of the normal deployment cities for some of these landing operations that we're seeing today. The difference, as you mentioned, it will be that we will return back to Zhezkazgan for the welcome home ceremony. We arrived at that airport early this morning to stage for deployment out here to the landing site today. We'll return there again for the welcome home ceremony, where the 3 crew members will be greeted by various Roscosmos personnel and leadership that will have presented the ceremonial gifts and wardrobe that are accustomed to the welcome home ceremony. That ride, as you mentioned, is a little bit shorter. We deployed a bit early just to make sure that we were able to see the aircraft. Unfortunately, we were not able to see the spacecraft land from our helicopter, the media helicopter that deployed a bit earlier than some of the others. However, we did get confirmation of the landing, and shortly after, we're right next to the capsule. This commute was just over an hour's time. This is a little bit shorter than the usual 2 hours that it takes to come from the landing site back to Karaganda, where the usual welcome home ceremony is staged. However, back in Zhezkazgan, I'm sure the crew members will be pleased for the shorter commute back to Zhezkazgan, where they will do the welcome home ceremony and ride the aircraft back to their respective homes. Serena Anna Chancellor and Alexander Gerst taking the G3 aircraft, splitting up in Bodo, Norway, where a separate aircraft will take Alexander Gerst back to Europe, and the G3 will continue on to Houston to take Serena Anna Chancellor back to her home in Houston less than 24 hours after her departure from Zhezkazgan later today. Search and recovery force is still positioned at the top of the ladder structure, the metallic ladder structure, about to receive the second of 3 crew members inside the vehicle.
Gary, you were in one of the first helicopters to take off from Zhezkazgan for the landing site. Could you see, from your vantage point in that helicopter, the Soyuz under the chutes before it descended into clouds?
Rob, unfortunately not. The various media were all positioned right on time for the landing here in the afternoon of, or I'm sorry, the late morning of their landing today. It looks like Serena and Chance are now being extracted from the vehicle. We weren't able to see those chutes deploy. I'm actually standing right next to the chute right now. Again, perfect landing. This Soyuz situated upright. Serena and Chance are now being extracted from the vehicle. Again, some of the forces that they undergo and the switch of the neurovestibular system from the microgravity environment to the Earth environment can be a bit taxing. So this process will be a slow and steady one to get them positioned in their seats here today.
Okay, Gary. We will stand by here as the extraction of the crew members continues. We lost our video feed from the landing site for the moment. We'll be regaining that here shortly. It has been about 40 minutes since the Soyuz MS-09 touchdown, not far from its intended bullseye target, with landing occurring at 11:02 p.m. Central Time. And there is Serena Auñón-Chancellor, having wrapped up her first flight into space, with video back from the landing site.
And Rob, I can confirm that Serena Auñón-Chancellor are being positioned in the right of the three seats here. Of course, Sergei Prokopiev already in the middle. Serena Auñón-Chancellor now positioned in the right, medical personnel covering her up from the frigid temperatures that we are experiencing here at the landing site this morning.
And we're seeing the NASA personnel, flight surgeons, Russian nurses, and other personnel around her. This is a typical scene as the crew members are bundled up against the frigid conditions. But nonetheless, Auñón-Chancellor with a smile on her face, having wrapped up 197 days in space.
Step behind the line.
And Rob, Serena Auñón-Chancellor now undergoing the standard series of medical checks, identical to the one that were performed on Sergei Prokopiev just a few minutes ago. Again, as you mentioned, smile on her face, medical personnel attending to her health, but happy to be on the ground, even in the frigid temperatures, to be breathing fresh air for the first time, as you said, in 197 days. Specialist still positioned at the top of the metallic ladder structure that has been erected over the Soyuz descent vehicle, about to retrieve the last of the three crew members inside the Soyuz MS-09, former Expedition 57 commander of the space station, Alexander Gerst.
Yes, after we leave, it's going to get much colder.
And Gary, we are continuing to get live video from the landing site. You can see snow flurries accompanying the crew's return to Earth.
Night was clear, no clouds. It was minus 21.
And we're getting views of Alexander Gerst.
Okay.
Smile on his face, waving to the personnel here situated on the ground. Back on the ground after 197 days in space, a record holder for European Space Agency astronauts for a total duration in space, now being aided by the Russian personnel down the slide structure of the next to the Russian specialist here, and being carried over to the last of the three seats situated on the left here in front of the media. He'll undergo his series of medical checks, of course, similar to Prokopiev and Auñón-Chancellor, and have a chance here soon after to be speaking with family to let them know that they, from their own voice, that they are here safe and sound on the ground here in the steppe of Kazakhstan.
And Alexander Gerst, with the completion of this mission, you can see the big smile on his face. 362 days in space, almost a full year in space for him. More than any other European Space Agency astronaut in history, having eclipsed the former record set by Thomas Reiter of 350 days in space for a European Space Agency astronaut.
Okay, put the hat on. Cover him up. Alex, can we put the devices on? Thank you, you too.
Very good.
All three crew members are now out of the spacecraft. They're being attended to. You're looking at European Space Agency flight surgeon on the right and a Russian nurse, Yana Shelipova, on the left, as they are attending to Alex Gerst. And again, these three crew members soon will be carried from their position next to their Soyuz capsule, which landed upright, which of course helps facilitate the extraction of the crew. They'll be carried in their respective chairs to a nearby inflatable medical tent to get out of their Sokol launch and entry suits and into more comfortable clothing as they undergo initial medical tests.
Heimzufliegen, meine Familie zu sehen, mit denen Weihnachten zu verbringen. Natürlich ist die Mission noch nicht vorbei. Es geht noch weiter.
Oh, that's right, Rob. Again, it is a frigid day. You're seeing some light flurries from the sky, which you may not see here on the ground. Just about 6 inches of snow at the very least. In some areas, packed a little bit more than others. The forecast was predicting about a foot of snow, and I do see it here in some areas, but the area cleared next to the capsule of the snow and a pathway to the medical tent. From my understanding, Rob, it will be Sergei Prokopyev conducting field tests, and Serena Anand-Chancellor and Alexander Gerst will not be conducting the field tests, but will still undergo the standard series of medical checks that are a part of the procedures that take place in the orange medical tent erected about 150 meters or 150 yards approximately away from the Soyuz descent vehicle today.
Thank you.
Well, Gary, we appreciate your reports from the landing site. We're going to let you go so you can warm up a bit. I know that you'll be back on a helicopter here very shortly, heading back to Zhezkazgan along with the rest of the crew a short time from now. Have a safe trip home, and thanks very much for all your assistance this evening.
Of course, Rob, I was glad to be here on the ground and witness the extraction of the 3 crew members of Expedition 57 who have landed safely today. It's great to see the fortitude of both the crew members for their long-duration stay aboard the space station and the vast amounts of planning and proper execution that goes into the search and recovery forces of all personnel that you're seeing here from the views of the landing site today. Thank you, Rob. As you mentioned, I'm going to warm up. It is a frigid day here, but it is good to see the 3 crew members here on the ground. I'll bring it back to you.
Thank you, Gary. That's Gary Jordan, NASA Public Affairs Officer at the landing site, right by the crew to the southeast of Zhezkazgan. The crew having landed about 47 minutes ago were quickly extracted from the spacecraft. They soon will be hauled in their respective chairs to a nearby medical tent to get out of those launch and entry suits and into more comfortable clothing. They will be flown, and there is Dmitry Rogozin, who's the head of the Russian Space Agency, Roscosmos, who flew to the landing site to greet the crew.
It keeps its promise.
Not to be forgotten, the 3 crew members on board the International Space Station, now Expedition 58, as the continuing human presence in space has passed 18 years now.
Yes, we're ready, as I told you.
Строй, щуку.
So let's bring Serena into the tent.
Я здесь, да. Иду.
Yes, I'm over here. I'm coming.
Anna Chancellor now being carried into the medical tent. She'll be joined there shortly by the other two crewmates. On board the International Space Station, the Expedition 58 commander, Oleg Kononenko, joined by David St. Jacques of the Canadian Space Agency and NASA's Anne McClain. They will be a three-person crew for about 2.5 months until the launch on February 28th U.S. time of Alexei Ovchinin, Nick Hague, and Christina Cook to bring the station back to a full 6-person capability. Alex Gerst being interviewed by a member of German television right there at the landing site.
Okay, let's lift.
Again, you're looking live at Serena Anna Chancellor being brought into a nearby medical tent by the landing site there in Kazakhstan.
Let him drink some tea. Thank you. Was it berry tea? Very good. Be gentle.
Alex Gerst now getting a ride into the medical tent. And Sergei Prokopiev now being brought to the medical tent.
You can just hold it if they ask you to.
This is Mission Control Houston. The three Expedition 57 crew members are safely inside a inflatable medical tent a short distance from the Soyuz MS-09 spacecraft that landed just about an hour ago at 11:02 p.m. Central Time, 12:02 a.m. Eastern Time, descending through thick clouds in single-digit temperatures to a safe and upright landing at the landing site to the southeast of the remote town of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan. The three crew members are in excellent shape, according to reports from the landing site. They will have an opportunity to get their land legs back a bit, to get out of those bulky launch and entry suits and into more comfortable clothing. They'll receive initial medical tests, and then they'll be loaded into individual helicopters to be flown about 35 minutes to the town of Zhezkazgan, where they will split up with Sergei Prokopiev, the Soyuz commander, returning in a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft to his home in Star City outside of Moscow, while Serena Anand Chancellor and Alexander Gerst will board a NASA Gulfstream jet in Zhezkazgan to fly to Bodo, Norway. At that point, Gerst will disembark, say farewell for the time being to his crewmate, Anand Chancellor, board a European Space Agency aircraft, and fly back to the European Astronaut Center in Cologne, Germany, while Anand Chancellor continues on to return to her home in Houston. All of the activities associated with today's homecoming of the Expedition 57 crew went by the book. The hatch closure, the undocking, the deorbit burn, and all of the entry activities were textbook in fashion, resulting in the safe and successful landing of the Soyuz spacecraft to wrap up for this crew what was a 197-day mission in space, 195 days on board the International Space Station. On board the station, the Expedition 58 crew, now operating as a three-person crew for the next 2.5 months under the command of Russian cosmonaut Oleg Kononenko, joined by Canadian Space Agency astronaut David St. Jacques and NASA flight engineer Anne McClain, as they await the arrival at the end of February U.S. time of three additional crew members, Russian cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin and NASA astronauts Nick Hague and Christina Cook, that will re-up the station to its normal complement of 6 people. That will wrap up our coverage of today's activities and the homecoming of the Expedition 57 crew. Prokopiev, Gerst, and Anand Chancellor home safely back on Earth after 6.5 months. Thank you for joining us throughout the course of the day. We wish you a very, very happy holiday season. This is Mission Control Houston.